once again to study together. As we've been considering the first several verses in 1 Nephi chapter 5, last time we talked about conflict resolution that Lehi and Sariah had used to work together. So let's continue on with the citation index references. Let's see, we just covered that. So let's take a look at this one. This one's reference 8. This is Alright, so this is Joseph Smith under a section called Parting the Veil Through Perfect Faith. He says, Brother Joseph Smith Jr. said, "We have assembled together to do the business of the Lord, and it is through the great mercy of our God that we are spared to assemble together. Many of us have gone at the command of the Lord in defiance of everything evil and obtained blessings unspeakable, in consequence of which our names are sealed in the Lamb's book of life. For the Lord has spoken it. It is the privilege of every elder to speak the things of God. And could we all come together with one heart and one mind in perfect faith, the veil might as well be rent, today as next week or any other time, and if we will but cleanse ourselves and covenant before God to serve Him, it is our privilege to have an assurance that God will protect us at all times." So that's a pretty impressive promise there, that if we could all come together with one heart, one mind, in perfect faith, the veil might as well be rent. I like it. I like it. This one we're going to look for 11. So this is a section called Beware of Pride, and Joseph Smith says, "We would say, beware of pride also, for well and truly hath the wise man said that pride goeth before destruction, and a haughty spirit before a fall. And again, outward appearance is not always a criterion by which to judge our fellow men, but the lips betray the haughty and overbearing imaginations of the heart. By his words and his deeds let him be judged. Flattery is also a deadly poison. A frank and open rebuke provoketh a good man to emulation, and in the hour of trouble he will be your best friend. But on the other hand, it will draw out all the corruptions of corrupt hearts, and the lying and the poison of asps is under their tongues, and they do cause the pure in heart to be cast into prison, because they want them out of their way. A fanciful and flowery and heated imagination beware of, because the things of God are of deep import, and time and experience and careful and ponderous and solemn thoughts can only find them out. Thy mind, O man, if thou wilt lead a soul unto salvation, must stretch as high as the utmost heavens, and search into and contemplate the darkest abyss, and the broad expanse of eternity. Thou must commune with God. How much more dignified and noble are the thoughts of God than the vain imaginations of the human heart? None but fools trifle with the souls of men. How vain and trifling have been our spirits, our conferences, our councils, our meetings, our private as well as public conversations. Too low, too mean, too vulgar, too condescending for the dignified characters of the called and chosen of God according to the purposes of His will. from before the foundation of the world. We are called to hold the keys of the mysteries of those things that have been kept hid from the foundation of the world until now. Some have tasted a little of these things, many of which are to be poured down from heaven upon the heads of babes, yea, upon the weak, obscure, and despised ones of the earth. Therefore we beseech you, brethren, that you bear with those who do not feel themselves more worthy than yourselves, while we exhort one to another to a reformation with one and all, both old and young, teachers and taught, both high and low, rich and poor, bond and free, male and female. Let honesty and sobriety and candor and solemnity and virtue and pureness and meekness and simplicity crown our heads in every place, that in fine become as little children, without malice, guile, or hypocrisy. So, good counsel there. That we need to definitely be aware of pride, and the reference that we were looking at was around here. The things of God are of deep import, and time, experience, careful and ponderous and solemn thoughts can only find them out. So that's what we need to consider. Careful, ponderous, and solemn thoughts. I like that. And you know, how does that fit in with, I should not have known the goodness of God? I think this is one of the things that we need to consider. How are we doing this in our lives? How are we applying time, experience, careful and ponderous thoughts to the things of God? All right, that was verse 4. All right, we covered that one last time, so let's go to 8. So this one we've definitely covered in the last little while, this talk. So this is Richard D. Scott, Learning to Recognize Answers to Prayers. I just want to read these 2 paragraphs. Nephi knew he was required to confide in God, to exercise faith, and to act so that he could receive help, step by step. He did not murmur nor ask for full explanation, but observed particularly, he did not wait passively for help. He acted. By following spiritual law, he was inspired and given power to act. Sometimes answers to prayer are not recognized because we are too intent on waiting confirmation of our own desires. We fail to see that the Lord would have us do something else. Be careful to seek His will. Good advice there, and definitely a principle that we can put into practice as we seek to do the will of the Lord and gain understanding from Him. Lehi didn't know all the particulars of what was going to happen. He just knew that he had to get out. He acted. Nephi didn't know what he was going to do to get the plates. He just acted. And that's what the Lord's going to have us do. That's a pattern that we're definitely going to see in our lives. If you haven't seen it in your life already, you will. And it's potentially already been there and you haven't recognized it, as he points out. here that sometimes the answer to the prayer is not recognized when we fail to see that the Lord would have us do something. So there we go. Good advice. Let's apply that concept in our life of acting. I think we took a look at this one in a previous episode, not too long ago. Let's reference 22. This is Joseph Smith again from Teachings of the Prophet Joseph Smith. The section, It Behooves Us to Be Wise. Joseph states, as a church and a people, it behooves us to be wise and to seek to know the will of God, and then be willing to do it. For blessed is he that heareth the word of the Lord and keepeth it, say the Scriptures. Watch and pray always, says our Savior, that ye may be accounted worthy to escape the things that are to come on the earth, and to stand before the Son of Man. If Enoch, Abraham, Moses, and the children of Israel, and all God's people, were saved by keeping the commandments of God, if saved at all, shall be saved upon the same principle. As God governed Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob as families, and the children of Israel as a nation, so we, as a church, must be under his guidance if we are prospered, preserved, and sustained. Our only confidence can be in God, our only wisdom obtained from him, and he alone must be our protector and safeguard, spiritually and temporally, or we fall. We have been chastened by the hand of God heretofore for not obeying his commands. Although we never violated any human law or transgressed any human precept, yet we have treated lightly his commands, and departed from his ordinances, and the Lord has chastened us sore, and we have felt his arm and kissed the rod. Let us be wise in time to come, and ever remember that to obey is better than sacrifice, and to hearken than the fat of rams. The Lord has told us to build the temple at the Nauvoo house, and that command is as binding upon us as any other, and that man who engages not in these things is as much a transgressor as though he broke any other commandment. He is not a doer of God's will, and not a fulfiller of his laws. So this is a great concept here that the prophet's bringing out, that we're subject to God's commands, and when we don't follow them, as he says, if we treat lightly his commands, he's going to chasten us because he loves us and he wants us to do better, and we're actually no better than the transgressor if we are not doing the things that the Lord has commanded us, even though it has no impact. We're not violating, as he says, human law or any human precept, but we have not done what the Lord's asked us to do. If the Lord tells us to do something, and one of these personal commandments, like it was for Lehi, like it was for Laman and Lemuel, Nephi and Sam getting the records, to obey is better than sacrifice. We need to follow the commandments of the Lord to us personally, whatever they are. It's good advice. Good advice. We'll be blessed as we do it. This is reference 8. see, this is the prophet Joseph Smith speaking to the 12. And he says, the prophet also stated to the 12 that he did not countenance the harsh language of the President Cowdery to them, neither would he countenance it in himself, nor in any other man, although he said he, I have sometimes spoken too harshly from the impulse of the moment, and inasmuch as I have wounded your feelings, brethren, I ask your forgiveness, for I love you. I will hold you up with all my heart in all righteousness before the Lord and before all men. For be assured, brethren, I am willing to stem the torrent of all opposition, in storms and in tempests, in thunders and lightnings, by sea and by land, in the wilderness, or among false brethren, or mobs, or whatever God in his providence may call us. I am determined that neither heights nor depths, principalities nor powers, things present or things to come, or any other creature shall separate me from you. And I will now covenant with you before God, that I will not listen to or credit any derogatory report against any of you, nor condemn you upon any testimony beneath the heavens, short of that testimony which is infallible, until I can see you face to face, and know of a surety, and I do place unremitted confidence in your word, for I believe you to be men of truth, and I ask the same of you. When I tell you anything, that you place equal confidence in my word, for I will not tell you I know a thing that I do not know, but I have already consumed more time than I intended when I commence, and I will now give way to my colleagues. So there you go, Joseph Smith saying that he has confidence in the 12 and hopes they have the same confidence in him. That was verse 8. All right, I think that gets us to where we had pretty much came to 9. So Sariah knows that the Lord hath commanded Lehi to flee, and says they came to pass that they did rejoice exceedingly, in verse 9, and did offer sacrifice and burnt offerings unto the Lord, and they gave thanks unto the God of Israel. And after they had given thanks unto the God of Israel, my father Lehi took the records which were engraven upon the plates of brass, and he did search them from the beginning. So, interesting order of operations here, that the first thing they do is they rejoiced, they offered sacrifice and burnt offerings to the Lord, and gave thanks unto God. Then they went and they looked and started to search the records, search the scriptures that were upon the brass plates. And so we've got some references there. Let's take a look. So this is a reference for the brass plates, and he says in 13, verse 23, and he said, Behold, it proceedeth out of the mouth of the Jew, and I, Nephi, beheld it. And he said unto me, The book that thou beholdest is a record of the Jews, which contain the covenants of the Lord, which he hath made unto the house of Israel, and it also containeth many of the prophecies of the holy prophets, and it is a record like unto the engravings which are upon the plates of brass, save there are not so many. Nevertheless, they contain the covenants of the Lord, which he hath made unto the house of Israel, wherefore they are of great worth unto the Gentiles. So that was the angel explaining what's going to be in the book that is a descendant of the plates of brass for the Gentiles. And if there's, a knowledge of the covenants of God, and they're going to be of great worth, even with there not being so many, you can imagine that the plates of brass are going to be of benefit to Lehi and his family. So we'll continue on with that vein of thinking as we continue next time. And I leave that with you in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you would, click subscribe and like, and then comment below of what you would like to study together, and we'll see what we can do.